When I was a kid, I would watch Star Wars Attack of the Clones on repeat. The way I did that though took much less time and commitment as compared to anyone else that watched this at the time, or any other movie on repeat. Back then, all I wanted to see were the visuals, the fun, the spectacle. That's what it was all about. And so what I would do was skip everything else. If I was the slightest bit bored by a scene, skip. If two characters were talking for more than like 30 seconds, skip. Let's be honest, if characters were talking, period, I was skipping that shit. I didn't want to see Anakin get tempted to the dark side. I didn't care about all the space politics and all this stuff. I didn't care about whatever Count Dooku was up to, or Obi-Wan, or whatever. Couldn't give a shit. All I wanted to see was Jedi stuff. I wanted to see Yoda do some flips. All I wanted to see was like Yoda do some flips, the Jedi do some lightsaber fights. I just wanted to see space shit, you know? Like that one scene where they're in that gladiator thing and they get ambushed by all the aliens and stuff. Oh, that is what I was all about when I was a kid. And so that's all I would watch, and I'd montage on through watching all the cool and explosive action going on while not really paying attention to any of the story. The idea of that kind of sickens me now, if I'm being honest. Like, what makes a movie good is the relatability and the relationships between characters and the themes and complex stories and whatever, but there I was, cutting to the fun stuff. I was a kid, you know, you get it. And a version of what I'm describing here is much easier to do nowadays too, thanks to the internet and YouTube and streaming service and even independent VFX companies like Corridor Crew. These are all places, companies, people providing content ready within the click of a button. Shit's easy now is what I'm saying. Back then, it wasn't as common. Sure, you'd probably be able to find stuff on YouTube, but this was early days and it wasn't high quality stuff and it wasn't everything you wanted. So I manufactured these stunt reel visual effects versions for exclusively just me, myself and I on the DVD. And I remember doing this for a whole bunch of movies too. The Matrix Reloaded, The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. Even on my off days, I'd skim through the talk to see Spider-Man just kick ass and not pay attention to much else. The list goes on. I was kind of like a lazy movie watcher when I was a kid. Now that I think about it. And while I think back and like look at how different my perspective is now, it's kind of funny to think about how close I maybe was to never gaining an appreciation for story, which is a wild thing to imagine nowadays. You know, because if action was all I cared about, what did I know about these characters? Why would I have cared? Why they were doing what they were doing? Did I understand anybody's motivation? Where was the investment? There wasn't one, I guess. You know, I kind of really, like, looking back on it, hate what I did. I was turning intelligent movies like Terminator 2 Judgment Day into simplified cartoons. I'd take away the complexities of the morals of the characters. I would not pay attention to, like, why Arnold Schwarzenegger is now a good guy in this one. No, I would just turn it into a black and white, easy thing to watch. And all because I wasn't patient enough to listen to dialogue at the time. Things changed though, I think, when I developed more of a love for comedies and light-hearted movies like Bruce Almighty, Dodgeball, and Shaun of the Dead, which are all movies I still like to this day.
I'm Bruce Nolan for Eyewitness News. Back to you, fuckers.
Though back then, I'm pretty confident I didn't understand all the references. But I think what appealed to me was the tone over everything else. You know, they were easy to watch. They weren't detrimental. There was nothing like threatening. The present danger was funny. And these movies didn't try to be too epic. They were just kind of chill, you know? It was good stuff to put on while I did kid shit in the background. They just didn't feel like they were too big of a... I don't know, it was at this time where I felt like a lot of dialogue in action movies and stuff bored me. I didn't care about why people were fighting and stuff. So I turned to comedies and I could kind of relate to these a little bit more. I don't think I realized it at the time, but I mean, the comedies I was watching focused more on normal to real life people. Even in Bruce Almighty, you know, he becomes God, literally, but, like, he's just a guy, and that's where a lot of the humor actually stems from. So I kind of see, looking back, why it appealed to me. I liked the idea of just a normal guy like me, even if he wasn't quite like me, because I was still a kid, but just a normal guy gaining, like, these amazing powers. Though when I'm talking about the same movies today, I might have come up with more of an appreciation for things like Edgar Wright's directorial work in Shaun of the Dead, and the whole satirical and just stupid side of Dodgeball, what White Goodman represents as a character.
Hello.
I still get the feeling that movies like these aren't quite as big a slog to get through as movies that take themselves seriously. I mean, you don't need me to explain that. Some movies have a much slower pace and some people don't have the patience for it. You know, now that I'm older, I feel like I do have the patience for that. But like, you know, on your off days, you're gonna want to just chuck on some shit like Dodgeball compared to something like The Dark Knight, which, don't get me wrong, is a fantastic movie. I love it so much. I think it was in my top 50 movies of all time, something like that. But I mean, I remember watching it for the first time. I would have been about 12 when it came out. And I gotta say, like, looking back on it, like, The Dark Knight, even though it's Batman, I don't think The Dark Knight is really for 12-year-olds. Not really. It bored me shitless. There was too much talking. There was too much criminal mumbo jumbo and detective stuff and whatever. I didn't care about the social commentary behind it or like the themes of Batman becoming a hero and all this stuff. Like, no, I just wanted to see Batman punch the Joker. That's all I wanted to see back then. And I feel like a bit guilty because I guess that's why. And I guess that's why it always has been this way as well, that the movies that make the most money, like, all the time is always stuff like Star Wars and whatever. Like, it's the more simple stuff. And as big a fan as I am still of stuff like that, like of superhero movies and stuff, I'm glad I've grown from this stage. From those mostly innocent sort of comedies that I was into at the time, I then went on to thinking that I'd grown up a little. Emphasize the thinking. I thought I'd grown up. And I had discovered the more raunchy shit at this point, like American Pie and Superbad, okay? They were like my favorite things in the world because I was so edgy and thought I was so fucking cool. So I pretty much liked anything done by Seth Rogen or even Judd Apatow, who in retrospect is way more for adults in more of a realistic way than just being raunchy for the sake of it, but whatever. For some reason, some of those kinds of movies appealed to me. It's kind of weird to think about because it's like, what was I even enjoying? No, but actually, I like these movies because they felt like they were hanging out with friends. The scenes where the protagonists in Superbad, Seth and Evan, were just walking and talking like any high school kid had me in awe of the normalcy. Like, it didn't have to be cinematic and theatrical. It could just be two guys talking. And the thing is, I didn't even care about what they were talking about. I didn't care about what jokes they were making. I just liked the tone, the friendliness of it, I guess, the inclusiveness. I liked the friendly kind of nature, and I also liked that they didn't feel like, yeah, that big of a commitment to watch. You could kind of just drop in and out, and it didn't really matter that much how much attention you were paying to it. And at the time, like, these were good movies for a still then young, undiscovered movie lover. Or in other words, I would say a lazy movie watcher. But at the time, I do think that I did learn from these sorts of movies in that I learned that not all movies were equal. Not all movies had to be watched with the same intent. I didn't have to pay attention to something like this as much as I did, you know, something more serious or whatever. And I do think that that really affected my habits in what movies that I did watch. Then I think that it did really affect how quickly I started to grow out of watching those types of movies and then got drawn into, I mean, I'm just gonna say it, better stuff. Just straight up better stuff. Because I look back on those movies now and I think they're lazy, and I think they were majorly overrated at the time, and I don't even enjoy them at all anymore. But for the time, there was something to be learned for me. I actually even recently rewatched Superbad and couldn't even get through it. Every second sentence was something about getting a blowjob or this or that. It just made me kind of uncomfortable, to be honest. It's kind of gross, and don't get me wrong, with the right context, I wouldn't necessarily have to be turned off by such dialogue. Like, jokes like these can be funny if they're just straight up, if they're funny, but the excessiveness just began to annoy the shit out of me in Superbad. They're just fucking gross in Superbad. Sorry, fans of Superbad. Like, I get it, they're kids, they talk shit, but come on. Kids also talk about Batman, other superhero stuff. They talk about their favorite movies or shows. They talk about music, their favorite artists, all types of stuff. Kids talk about lots of other things than just, you know, girls and sex and alcohol and whatever, right? I mean, right? Look, I'm not a teenager. Maybe they don't. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe this is my warped perspective from being a person that never really drank and still doesn't really drink and never went to parties or anything. Look, maybe I wasn't quite the perfect example of what a teenager is. I'm not the perfect representation of that. Oh, I wasn't. But still, I spent time with them as one, and we talked about other shit. There was always one movie that stayed constant throughout my whole life though. I always said my favorite movie as a kid was The Terminator, and ever since have always found that funny. Because what kind of kid loves The Terminator? While my peers were watching Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z or whatever, there I was appreciating, albeit in a limited and let's say childish way, The Terminator. Regardless, this was one movie I could sit all the way through, dialogue and all. I loved everything. Schwarzenegger was a goddamn icon and his accent was funny. I mean, that's just the case. That was an appeal to me at the time.
Hello, cutie pie. One of us is in deep trouble.
The time travel element was fascinating to me, and Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese were like these cool old survivors to look up to. Being an action movie fan, The Terminator was perfect. Also, I thought. I don't think I even realized as a kid how much of a like subgenre movie this is. I mean, The Terminator is basically half a horror movie. It's a slasher movie. The Terminator is the equivalent of Freddy Krueger and whatever, except he's just got a sci-fi element to it. And my dumb kid brain tricked myself into thinking that that wasn't scary because he's a robot instead of being like supernatural. Robots aren't scary, I guess I figured. I didn't realize how much of a subgenre horror movie this is, because if there was one thing that I did not touch, there was one thing that just out of pure fear and instinct, if there was one thing that I avoided at all costs as a kid, it was horror. It was horror movies, horror anything. I didn't like being scared, and I was scared fucking quite easily. Yeah, anything that seemed vaguely horror related at all just scared the crap out of me. There was no chance. I couldn't walk past posters. I couldn't look at the covers of movies. You couldn't get me close at all to any sort of horror movie. That's the kind of kid that I was. But, there I was loving The Terminator because, yeah, it was a robot instead of being like some supernatural evil villain icon or whatever. From here on out, I would say as like a mid-year teen, my next phase of education movie-wise probably came from myself opening up to things I'd never wanted to before, on behalf of my at the time girlfriend and now wife wanting me to do so. And so funnily enough, she happened to love horror movies and turned out to be a secret movie addict along with me. And so as we kind of like grew up together, we ended up influencing each other's tastes and ended up encouraging a strong interest in this form of media. So we spent our teens renting from Blockbusters or the equivalent until there was just no viable option to do so anymore once that all closed out. Oh god. Sad days. We kept that alive though as long as we could until Netflix finally became as big as it is today and was introduced to Australia. Our lives kind of changed for the better that day. Ironically or not, we now had access to view so much more than we'd ever had before. It had frustrated us for years when we wanted to watch that one movie, but we could never find it. It didn't have the know-how or desire in torrenting, downloading and all that shit. I love how much me and my wife love watching movies together, and she's probably half the reason I love movies as much as I do to this day to begin with. And my wife's love for horror movies also turned out to be transformational for myself, because she entirely changed my taste in a genre that before I just couldn't even see the potential in liking. Beforehand, I'd never given horror a shot at all, like just not at all. That wasn't my thing. I had no desire to spook myself, though admittedly I always had that kind of curiosity. You know what I mean? It's the peeping through the peeping through your fingers type of thing where you do kind of want to see, but only a little bit, much less than everybody else, I think, because I was too scared. I just couldn't do it. Like, I don't think I could physically make myself do it. That was until she told me to watch the movie Saw. Saw changed everything. Saw proved horror wasn't all about, well, horror exclusively. There could be a good story there. It wasn't just death and scares. Saw proved that horror had more to offer. There could be a mystery to solve, there could be characters to root for, there could be villains to reign over said characters and become icons themselves. Saw flipped a switch in my brain, and over the next few years and from there on out, well, I've seen plenty of horror movies nowadays. The only unfortunate thing about that is that when you've done that, you eventually become desensitized to a lot of it. From then on, it was rare that a horror movie ever scared me even a little bit. Horror wasn't about being scared anymore though, it was just another genre with a different feel. That's not to say I never ever got scared of any horror movies as a teen, because funnily enough, all of the James Wan stuff, Insidious and The Conjuring, still proved that there was a potential in the criteria for that genre. James Wan is a master, and he's the only filmmaker pretty much that can bring scares to me anymore. Anyway, on the other side of that, at the time, even still, I would try and get my wife to watch superhero movies with varying degrees of success. She's still not super into them, but that's That's marriage for you, baby. Sorry, that was weird. Yeah, she never gained that much of a love for him, with maybe a few exceptions. But, you know, at the time, and still do, we've always shared movies and we watch stuff for each other. We've gained perspective and we've changed our tastes because of it. Like, it's a really good thing to give things a chance in that way. That's what I've learned over the years. So at this point, I'm like 16, I don't know, and she continued to open my eyes to other genres, which I'd only purposefully skipped out on through ignorance. She soon unlocked this level of taste, I guess, for something I never, ever wanted to touch beyond horror. The romance genre, chick flicks, love, all that shit, whatever you want to call it. I wasn't into it, I didn't want it. I thought, you know, you grow up as a boy, that's for girls. Oh, well, that's what I thought for a lot of years, and I think that's what a lot of guys think. And I don't know, the sooner you learn that that's like not always the case and love affects everybody and like there's relatability in that genre, the better. I mean, not everything has to be fucking car crashes and chases and guns and whatever, you know? Yeah, so if there was anything that was like chick flick material, as I would have called it, I would have called that stuff gay because I was a dipshit, you know? I'm just saying, and if you were around my age and stuff, you probably did too. And if I ever did end up liking anything like that, it was happenstance, you know? Like, I was embarrassed of it, but it's like, okay, that's the exception, whatever, but we don't talk about that. Like, there was this one movie that I really liked that I had taped from TV, Just Like Heaven, with Mark Ruffalo. It's a romance movie. The woman's a ghost or something. It's like a comedy. Who is it? Reese Witherspoon, she's a ghost, and yeah, so it's like a comedy about her being a ghost and he loves her or something. I don't really remember, but yeah, I really liked it, but I was like super embarrassed of that when I was younger for whatever reason. I mean, I guess I'd be embarrassed of liking it now because it's not a particularly good movie, but not because of the genre. I think maybe I do still like that movie. I don't know, maybe I need to rewatch it. So the point is, movies with more of a feminine perspective were now more accessible to me, and they were also vaguely pushed on me from my now wife. Whether the movies were good or bad though, at least I wasn't dumb about it anymore, you know what I mean? Through my acceptance to the genre, I fell in love with 500 Days of Summer, for example, which became my favorite movie for many years after, and is still up there for me. Though she might have also made me watch some complete and utter bullshit that I won't name because she'd probably defend it to this day and accuse me of being a snob. Okay, I'll name 27 Dresses, that's one. Yeah, no, that yucky. Get that one away from me, please. Ugh. No, thank you. But mostly this turned out to be a great thing for me and proved that all genres had variations and things to offer. And she showed me that even the sappiest and most obvious choices, like The Notebook for example, had some things to appreciate and has since become a movie I quite legitimately love. And just for a little recommend section, here are some romance movies that are really good. I mean, obviously that's what a recommendation is, isn't it? About Time. I will always recommend About Time. Where is it? Here it is. I've got it facing because this is one of my all-time favorite movies. About Time is beautiful. I love it so much. Water for Elephants. This is a kind of earlier one of Robert Pattinson. It's really good. Love, Rosie. This was a movie I was not expecting to love as much as I did. But it just tells the story of like this girl's life basically, and you know, I don't know. It's good. These are movies that I haven't watched in a while. I feel like I don't have anything specific to say, so just gonna name the titles from here on out, alright? Oh, I'm an idiot. This is the last one. Before Sunrise. That's the last one I got written down. There's good movies in all genres. I could name 100 great ones in every single genre. Ain't nobody got time for that, though, you know? My point is, not all the Nicholas Sparksy, schmaltzy bullshit is that bad. Some of it's alright. Give them a chance if you're ever in the situation, but remember to take your big boy pants off and shut up. Because I know what it's like. I remember what it used to be like, being embarrassed to watch this kind of shit, you know? I used to be so goddamn against anything like that. But you know what? You're making yourself look even more immature, and you're stealing from yourself what might become your favorite movie of all time, like 500 Days of Summer was for me. Give him a chance. I mean, not Nicholas Sparks stuff specifically, because, I mean, that stuff mostly isn't great. But I'm just saying, genre-wise, you can't judge everything just off its genre. from then on, we went on together to discover a bunch of subgenres that we really liked. Together, we shared a bunch of movies, and yeah, it was all about our teenage years and stuff, and like even later and even now. It was all about discovering new movies and even new genres. Yeah, there was this one genre that we particularly loved that I don't even know how to label. I don't know what to call it other than like indie, hipster, rom-com, teenagey, angsty, all those words. Stuff like It's Kind of a Funny Story, The Art of Getting By, Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, or more recently, Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl, and something like Paper Towns even, which I'm not that big of a fan of, but it kind of fits in that same genre for an example. There's this one great movie called Stuck in Love. That one's fantastic. The Edge of 17. Yeah, basically this kind of stuff was like our bread and butter. That's the term I've written here. Bread and butter. Who writes that? Am I 80? Yes. And although I still appreciate and love quite a lot of these, I do feel like I've maybe outgrown this genre a little bit, because as I rewatch some of them, I'm like, oh my god, get over this shit, you angsty teen. That's kind of how my perspective is a little bit. You know you've grown up when you start agreeing with the parents in movies. Like, I think I've seen a meme or something where people say this, like when you go and rewatch Disney movies and you're like, yeah, Ariel's dad is right, she shouldn't go live with the humans because they're all assholes or something, or whatever his opinion is in that movie. I don't remember, but just for an example.
Oh my god, you want to talk about
Genres.
I think people get caught up in genres. They label things one way or the other and they do not like them from there. I'm not perfect with this still. I still obviously have my preferences, which is far from a bad thing, but it's good to be open as well, I guess is what I'm saying. Or else if I didn't, I probably still would not love film as much as I do now. I would still probably be skimming through action movies with no head or heart connected to it at all. Well, probably not. I'd probably be more productive with my time, but you get my point. In the years since, my tastes are still ever evolving. I'm definitely not all the way there yet, and I'm still learning to appreciate different aspects to movies and filmmakers' perspectives. More recently, in the past few years, I've been edging closer and closer to other people around me thinking I'm a snob because I like award-winning films and art house shit. And while it's true, and I'm honestly proud of that fact, to be honest, and kind of like trying to show it off because I'm so cool, I'm intelligent, look at me. That ain't it. And I don't love all of this genre at all, far from it. I'm far from pretentious, and I can still enjoy a dumb little dick joke or a martial arts fight here and there or whatever else. The difference for me since being a kid is that I can only appreciate that stuff if it's also connected to a better movie on all fronts with it. You know, I can appreciate a fight scene if I believe in what the characters are doing. I can laugh at a dick joke if it's coming from a place where the characters would really be saying that, and if it's a well-crafted joke, obviously, as well. Every genre has something to offer, though. It just has to be executed well for me. So, while I might not return to Attack of the Clones anytime soon, because I don't care still about the space politics, and I don't think that's a particularly good movie, I do still watch and rewatch the John Wick movies, because, yeah, they're simple. Yeah, it's just a guy killing a bunch of guys, but it's executed so goddamn well. And there's that bit of heart in there. There's just that little bit of heart. Not everything has to be sappy shit, but John Wick has enough heart to make you believe in the character and to make you root for him. That's the genius of the simplicity of that. It's not entirely complex. It's not this big overlapping story with a bunch of narratives going on. There's not 1,000 different characters. It's John Wick, wife is dead, they killed his dog, the last remnant of his wife. That's it, you're done. And he's a badass. And if you cross John Wick in that way, you're done. And that is all those movies are. And they're cool. They're fun. But I mean, now what I appreciate most nowadays are deep characters. And so I maybe do veer off a bit onto movies that are a bit deeper than John Wick, but still, great characters and great stories. That is what appealed to me. I feel like everybody would think this as well, but I don't know, I'm on the camera and I'm saying it, so just listen to me say it, okay? I've come to appreciate that not everything in movies have to be larger than life. Not everything has to be an epic battle between life and death. But I think most importantly what I've learned is that not every movie has to be respectable. if that makes sense. And I don't have to be embarrassed of liking movies that aren't considered and deemed respectable from all film critics and whatever. Not that I disagree with film critics. I think they're very important. I look at them all the time. I'm not bad-mouthing critics. I'm not one of those guys that's like, I just agree with the audience. They're all right. And critics, fuck them. I never agree. Critics just want money. Disney... I like critics. I often find I agree with critics more than the audience, to be honest. But I'm just saying. For example, Happy Death Day. That's not a movie that's particularly universally loved. It's not a movie that's considered good, I guess, but oh man, do I love the Happy Death Day movies. They get me, yeah, I'm always pumped for those. They are so fun. Or something like the Wrong Turn series, which is utter trash, but I mean, they're fun to watch. So now that I've admitted to liking shit like that, take my movie fan club away, my club card, I'm not a movie fan anymore. It's a joke. That's my great sense of humor. Yeah, it's really working. I can feel it. Yeah, speaking of those movies that aren't deemed respectable though, I think that something that we as a movie fan community do, especially online, is we shit talk. We shit talk and we make fun of anybody that doesn't 100% agree with us, including myself, for sure. I try and be nice about everything. I try and give reasons for having an opinion that I do. But if you say that you love the movie Blended with Adam Sandler, I'm probably gonna think you're a bit dumb. It's just the case. And I'm sorry, and maybe that's just that one movie that you watched at that right perfect time in your life. It just happened to turn out good, and now you return to it. It reminds you of something good, maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons you can like a movie, even shit ones. And it's true, because even I like shit movies sometimes. I still am gonna maybe judge you for liking stuff like that. But still, I think that something that we should all work on is kind of understanding everyone's perspective. Something, especially online, we all need to do is discuss. Actually discuss. Not just be like, you're a dickhead if you think Batman vs Superman is better than The Dark Knight. Tell me why. Even if you're wrong and you're not gonna persuade me, because you're not. The Dark Knight's clearly better. Still, tell me why, because the discussion is fun, and I think that's something that a lot of people forget online. The discussion can be fun, even if it's with somebody that you strongly disagree with. And the same goes the other way too. If anybody says something good about something we exclusively hate, they're all an idiot. I mean, just look at the last two Star Wars movies, and you can see the clear divide and the immature-ish behavior that people online start to have when it comes to their opponent's opinions. The Last Jedi, I'm a fan of. Maybe you think I'm stupid for thinking that. I don't know. Don't be a dick about it if you do. I think Rise of Skywalker was shit, but I've talked to some people in real life and online who didn't mind it as much as me. I've explained my opinion, they've explained theirs. We disagree, but it was fun to talk about and we can see each other's points. It changes our perspective a little bit. So I think that's what I'm trying to learn to do. I'm trying to be more respectful, and I'm trying to not just judge everything off of quality, I guess. Like, some things can be enjoyed for different reasons, I guess. But at the same time, I do think that I would prefer to watch quality stuff than fast food equivalent movies. I view that as kind of a waste of my time, but there's a time and a place. As for me, I'm going to do my best to like things in all forms, all different kinds of genres. And I think I do. I think I'm pretty broad in that sense. I think one blind side for me is old movies. I haven't seen quite a lot of old movies. I don't particularly connect with a lot of them, but there's been some that I really have. Like, I love Taxi Driver, Ferris Bueller's great, I don't know, there'd be others, but point is, I think I need to make more of an effort to watch those classic movies, and I have been doing that this year, but maybe I need to step it up a bit more next year as well. My evolution is still going on. I'm still growing as a movie fan. I'm still learning. I'm still discovering. Look, I'll always be childishly into superhero movies. I'm always revering and excited for a new horror in cinemas. I'm probably mostly in love with drama/thriller movies like Nocturnal, Animals, and anything else Jake Gyllenhaal ends up doing, but most of all, I'm just going to try not to be too much of a dick when it comes to seemingly bad movies. From time to time, I gotta give things a try. And if there's anything that The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker taught us, it's that we can never agree. We can never all make up our minds about what's good and what's bad, and you should just like what you like. Jesus Christ. Keep on trying stuff and shut up about it. No, don't shut up about it. Tell people about it. I tell everybody that will watch my videos about any movie I watch. I'm all for it. I love the discussion. And just by doing that, you just might discover something you really, really love that you wouldn't have known about otherwise.